out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hello to you, Tim.
Ryan.
And hello, everybody. Yes, you. Yes, you. That's right, you. Hello. Welcome to Dismembering Horror, episode 77, in fact, of Dismembering Horror.
Those are 2 sevens.
Yes. Yes. 7.
I don't know.
Okay. Welcome, everyone.
So exciting.
It is. It's a good number, somehow fitting for this episode, too. As I said, this is Dismembering Horror. It's the podcast show where myself, Ryan McDuffie,
and myself, Tim Aslin.
That's right, Tim 77 Aslin. We watch and discuss, aka dismember, a horror film every week, in fact. We talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything we found interesting or noteworthy, in the hopes that we can just capture that spirit of watching a horror movie with a bud and then digesting it afterwards, cataloging it appropriately, since it feels like a tackleable genre.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No, horror films are just cool.
That too. Absolutely.
Just better than everything else.
Hoping to see some cool stuff along our journey, along the way this week. I think we found some pretty cool stuff. We watched, heard about, discussed, but at least for me, never seen.
I've never seen it.
Great. Martyrs.
Just heard about it.
Yeah, for part of the new French extremity movement of the aughts. Martyrs from 2008. We watched. We're going to talk about today. Starting off, unless you got anything to recap, Tim?
Nah.
Okay, then we start off first with the trailer for the film we watched. So here it is, the trailer, as I said, for Martyrs.
Elle était enfermée dans une chambre froide. Elle vivait là. Elle n'a pas été violée, c'est une certitude. Lucie ne raconte pas ce qu'elle a vécu.
Pourquoi tu crois qu'on a besoin de toi?
Lucie voulait attraper les gens qui ont fait du mal à Lucie.
C'est ça, Anna.
Elle sait pas qui c'est. Il faisait tout noir. Elle croit qu'elle se souvient, puis des fois non.
Qu'est-ce qu'elle te dit d'autre au juste?
Elle a peur.
Elle te raconte des choses?
Elle dit qu'il faut les attraper. Qu'est-ce que ça fait? Lucie qui fait peur. Lucie, tu devais les observer, t'étais pas sûre.
Bum, bum, bum. Martyrs. All right. Next up, we rate it, Tim. Per our rating system, would you tell yourself to avoid it?
I just hit my elbow.
Stream it, rent it, or buy it?
That's a good question. I don't think I need this movie. Like, I don't think I need to watch it multiple times. I think that was like, yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
It's cool. So I'm a rent.
Ditto. I'm a pretty strong rent. I think it is. I think it's definitely, just as a horror film, one of the better, deserves, to be in top whatever list as far as just like the decade. The millennium is kind of another list we're looking at now.
Yeah. I mean, we'll obviously talk about it, but I just don't understand all the like criticism that this movie got.
You'll have to shed light on that, because I didn't find much in that regard. Okay. But no, just it's because of whatever kind and flavor it exactly is. Like, I think it's great, but it's just not, for whatever reason, it's just not quite a buy it for me. Just a very high rent it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like I need to see it a lot. It's weird. Like, I think it's hard to, was looking at the list again of what the French New Extremity movement entails as far as what films are in it, and realized I think this is just like the fourth I've seen, and there's plenty out there. So
I'd have to look. That's an interesting list to look at.
So not speaking from a knowledge place, it's really hard to, but it's still really hard not to imagine this film being kind of like the pinnacle of this movement. You know, if it lasted the 2000s, came out toward the end, 2008. And I it's hard for me though, as my like personal favorite, to see Calvert ever being beat as my favorite, but I can see how they're very different. Like this is much more like explicitly violent, blah, blah, blah. But I think what's so cool about this overall is just yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think how to put it, why it's a pinnacle of these kind of movies. Like it's a violent revenge film, but it feels like it was the first one, you know, compared to Inside and High Tension, to really make that a story. Like use that to do a full story regarding that setup.
Yeah, and those other movies, I think, have kind of broad swaths of like socio-political commentary. And this one, I think, is very much more pointing at, like, it's more clearly saying something about that.
Well, yeah, it's that great thing. I mean, that thing I love with great movies is it's pointed, yet in that pointedness allows lots of different questions, like that are all interesting, but kind of all tiptoeing around the same theme, thematic ideas to emerge. This was really cool. Yeah, great. All right, well, what happened in this film, Tim? Because our next section is to give us the summary.
Okay, so this young girl, Lucy, has escaped from captivity. Presumably, she's been tortured badly. She looks like she's been tortured badly. And she's now in a, you know, a home for, I don't know, kids.
Hurt kids.
Yeah. There's, you know, it's got a little bit of that. Oh God, what was it called? It was we talked about it when we watched Sisters, the asylum that Geraldo like exposed on Staten Island. It has a little bit of that feel. It's just it's kids who just don't have a place, you know?
Right. No one believes her, so she's seeing basically a woman creature, like a crazed creature.
But she's not telling anybody anything. So the quote unquote authorities they're trying to figure it out. They're looking into it. They have a detective who like is questioning other, you know, her roommate who is the only person she talks to, whose name is Anna. Right.
So Anna, whatever, she's the only one she's not even sure whether she believes her or not.
No.
But she's there to support her, to give her love and support and all that. And then so from them being kids, we jump to 15 years later.
Right. And Lucy has tracked down who she believes are the man and woman who held her in captivity.
She turns out to be right.
She is right. And that's a little bit of a shock to Anna. She kind of has been going along for the ride because she, you know, cares about Lucy.
Well, it's confirmed that like Lucy is seeing a woman that only she sees that's crazed and seeing that she's doing the damage to her. So Anna, her friend, is kind of like doesn't know where her craziness ends and where it begins necessarily.
Yeah. But ultimately, Anna, you know, learns that Lucy was right this whole time and that these were the actual people. And even furthermore, she discovers that the house that they're living in is now where they are torturing people in a much more streamlined and contained like pit underneath their house.
Yep.
Like It's quite elaborate and like nice. You know, the place that Lucy was originally tortured was like sort of this abandoned factory, you know, very whatever in the middle of nowhere. This is like everything's clean and stainless steel, and you know, it's very high end.
And it's all because they have the money for it, and they have the money for it because this whole orchestration is being done by a
secret society of some sort?
secret society, basically a group of rich white people. Rich, older white people who are obsessed with questions concerning mortality and the afterlife.
Right.
And martyrdom, and how that sort of allows for a transcending, like Jesus, to sort of connect or see God. They're looking for answers to questions in that regard. So that's why they capture, and they say women are more prone to achieving that. So that's why they specifically capture young women. Mm-hmm. And then it's sort of, and then so when Anna gets killed by them at the beginning, who ends up being
Lucy.
Wait. Okay, Lucy.
Well, Lucy kills herself.
Okay. So
Anna's
the one who becomes the main character.
Correct. Lucy.
Yeah, I was saying it wrong earlier, I think. Sorry.
Oh, really? So Lucy is the tormented one. Let's put it that way. She's the one who is suffering from having been tortured and abused, escaping, and then being haunted by her experience because she didn't save the other woman who was being held captive when she escaped. And that psychological sort of guilt has created this specter of a person who she believes is actually real and attacking her. And the only way to get rid of that specter is to get justice, to kill the people who were torturing her and this other woman. And so that's her psychology. Like that's where Lucy is coming from. Ultimately, once she has killed her torturers and the specter doesn't go away, it drives her to kill herself. She essentially, I don't know if you want to say goes mad or whatever, but she's had enough and she kills herself over it.
Right. And
that leaves Anna
about halfway point, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that's probably
maybe a little earlier.
Yeah. That leaves Anna to sort of feel the guilt of not really having believed her and like, you know, all that stuff. But when she finds the torture, what do you call that? The torture.
It's like an underground compound.
Yeah,
almost,
it's so like high tech.
Yeah, and big enough too. But then it just becomes the story of Anna's capture and then ensuing martyrdom because she is a successful case for these obsessed people.
Right, and they
capture and torture
fuck out of her. And it's a long sequence of her getting mostly just beat up.
It's really just torture, fade to black until she changes.
And they say, okay, you've now gotten to the next stage. Like they have this idea of like, we're going to torture you until you get to some state.
And sort of she hears Lucy's voice in her head and that helps I think her along.
Yeah. And so the final act or whatever to get her to that point of being alive but seeing the other side, I guess, is kind of what they're trying to get to. Their tactic to get her there is to skin her alive.
Yeah. Ultimate martyrdom, except for her little face section.
Right.
Like everything but their face. And they put her in like a weird blue liquid that sustains her or something, like a Bacta tank or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. And wait a minute, how does it end? Oh, right. And then so the woman who like is leading the secret society, Mademoiselle. She, you know, they're all psyched because Anna has confessed what she sees as this martyr, like her experience. She relays it to Mademoiselle, and Mademoiselle they bring like all the old fucks in this secret society come to hear what it is, because this is it, right? This is the pinnacle. Like, you get to know what's on the other side. Somehow you're better off, or what the fuck ever. The answer. And Mademoiselle decides that the truth is not for the living, and so she kills herself.
Great. That's what we got out of it. That's how we viewed this story. Let's move on and talk about what worked for us.
Okay.
All right. What worked?
What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I feel like this is the one I either wanted to start off with or end with. But just to start off with, so it doesn't get muddled in the middle, I just gotta say, for this kind of film, like, I think up front you just have to give big props to the actors, like, especially Show. Especially so for just this kind of film that's just all about their sustained distress and misery. Like I just tip my hat so hard for any actor who is a fan and believes in this kind of film as just having a kind of importance as any other film, and is willing to go there, and do what they have to do. And I especially, I mean, we all were watching in the show as horror films, but this is a specific kind of brand, you know, where they're just in a complete distressed, screaming, terrified, horrible, broken state the whole film. Like, Ed did an incredible job at doing all those things and gave it their all. So I just feel like more so than the filmmaker and anyone else involved and any of the cool ideas in that, Jesus, like, you just have to,
committed.
Commend that.
Yeah, it is pretty. Yeah, they kick the shit out of it.
Here, you can laugh at me trying to say their names. Malin Jampanoy as Lucy, and Morjana Alaoui as Anna.
That sounds, probably pretty close.
I can like fake the accent with just letters. I don't know how you do it. But I mean, yeah. Just props them. And then all the other actors are great too. Mademoiselle as the head, as the Mademoiselle is so much fun. The kid casting was really good. Like, there's a lot of
really good
flashback footage of them.
I was so worried that the movie, like, when we started off and we're looking, we're watching, what do you think? They're like 12-ish?
It's supposed to be like 10 or 12.
I was like, oh no. I didn't know this movie was about 10-year-olds. I was like, we're going to watch 10-year-olds go through some shit? I was like, I'm not prepared for this. I was like, no wonder it's like people got so upset over this movie.
Right.
Thank God they jumped to 15 years later.
But yeah, good casting and acting on their part, just because, like, even their, not just that, one distressed moment, they're the kind of only real scene they get at the beginning, and the not the school, wherever they're being boarded, the hospital, but just that flashback home video footage just brought a lot of humanity to the situation. I thought that was a good way to end it too. Great, that's out of the way. No, I wanted to mention that up front. I think for me, like, personally, why like this film works so well is its story structure, whatever you call it. Like, a film has to go where you're not expecting it to go for me. I'm always a fan of the film that, like, whatever you're expecting it to be, get it done up front. And then you just move to new, interesting territory. And that's all I'm about in life and in film, is the new, unexplored territory. Yeah. But what was so like at the way beginning of the film, rather than sort of leading up to a capture and showing it, we start off with an escape from a capture. And when I say this kind of film, I just mean the kind of, torture, revenge film, violent, French extremely, what this is.
I think, in particular, the revenge aspect. Like, we've seen revenge films done many, many different ways.
Right. So, going into this, it's something like that. But at the way beginning, you have an escape from being captured. You have right up front to once we, jump to it's not modern day, it's the mid 80s. But once we jump ahead in the timeline and they're young adults, they immediately, the revenge happens. The shooting
Right.
of the parents and the whole family, actually, and the kind of ensuing fracas that we usually associate with being the whole film, that's done way up front.
I really thought that, I was like, this is the whole, I thought when they kind of got toward the end of, you know, dealing with the bodies and whatever, and then Lucy killing herself, I was like, man, this is a brisk movie.
Right. So then once it keeps going, that's when I really sit up, is any moment where that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And then you just go, where's this going? But then what was so fascinating is I realized in the end, it ends up being that exact movie, because it's still about a girl's capture and torture and ensuing everything. But it allows you just to sort of, by wrapping itself around like that or looping back around, it's just sort of like the story, the real meat and bones story is just discovered, and it gives you a lot of just interesting things to play with.
I mean, I gotta say, I don't know how specifically like thought out this idea was, but it is kind of, to me, one of the more incredible. There's like two big ideas in this movie that I took away that I was like, holy fuck, this is real.
Say what they are, but I just wanted to note that I'm sure why they're able to emerge is because that stuff was taken up front, like we said. What we thought was going to be just a revenge movie is then all of a sudden not at all a revenge movie. Meaning, and the ideas surrounding that are just, we've already dealt with that.
I think the biggest one that I appreciate, I guess, especially in today, as we, like 2020, we talk about this stuff much more in the world. Believing people, like women in particular, when they say a thing, is like kind of fucking important,
right?
And this movie does the movie version of that, like the character arc version of that, which is Anna, who, you know, is not a bad person at all. She's you know, empathetic and caring and loving, and you know, wants to help her friend and all of these things. She stays by her side. She's like with her. She's a good person, but her sin essentially is that she didn't believe that Lucy had gone through this stuff.
Yeah.
And the character arc as a result of that is the worst thing, which is she's going to have to experience it for herself.
Right.
And that, to me, is a story construct. Using that theme is fucking brilliant. And, you know, like, it is what you, like that's how you write a character arc, right? Like, to me, that idea of being like, okay, well, what's the worst thing for this person to do? And then how does she, what's in horror, what's the worst way for her to learn the lesson?
Right.
And this is like full force.
Right.
The martyrdom thing is the other big thematic thing that I think is incredible. So, well, let's get to that later.
Yeah, no, just I guess just to say in a different way what you're saying as far as what it's about in that trauma sense leading to craziness or questionably crazy. Like, yeah, just the ideas underneath that for me. It's ideas of trauma being leaked to craziness, but yet like the very trauma itself is being conflated with that craziness. So it's a super interesting when, you have, okay, she's supposedly imagining this ghoul woman is the actual one scratching her and knifing her, even though she's just doing it herself, which means she's crazy. So does that also mean that she's crazy? She also somehow imagined these traumatizing events. But no, it's this traumatizing events is what led to it. So it's just this sort of like horrible chicken and the egg of trust that like from the outsider's perspective. And that's, and it was really fun. Like, I love the moment when Lucy's dead and Anna's apologizing to her. Sorry, I didn't fully believe you is basically what she's saying.
Yeah. That moment was like, oh shit. Yeah, that's where we're at.
And also just ways it moved beyond the revenge themes that I thought was really good was tying her trauma to not just being like tortured, but to specifically the guilt
Yes.
of leaving behind someone
It's huge.
else.
Because again, it's showing that this girl and subsequently woman she recognizes, the humanity outside of her own victimhood.
Yeah.
That it's not really actually about what she went through. There's a lot of, the victimhood is sort of treacherous territory depending on who you're talking to and how they view it, and potentially how they use it as a tool. And it shouldn't be used as a tool, right? And so they actually the writers found a good way to not fall into that trap.
Right. Well,
woe is me. It's not that.
Right. It's cool because the filmmaker, what's his name? Pascal. He said Laugier.
Yeah,
I don't know. He said that he
Laugier?
wanted to make it, that it was the film itself was relying on empathy, feeling for the
so
characters. So just the idea,
because they exhibit it constantly.
right? So exactly. So
That's huge.
and that's so much more interesting too. I think we forget we have. I don't know if it's a majority or as far as naturally more empathetic people, just feeling other people immediately, because these situations are so just huge and massive and intense. I think it's easy, on the filmmaking side, just to be like, okay, no, that's enough trauma to mess someone up. We don't
Sure.
need anything else. But to then just take into account to make it more nuanced and interesting as far as the character and then what emerges and these ideas of empathy. Yeah, make it so it's a person who's naturally empathetic in the way where the more traumatizing thing is to leave someone behind.
Well, and this is sort of why I get annoyed with the term torture porn, and in particular with now, Inside felt gratuitous. This did not feel gratuitous to me, and this is, I think, arguably worse torture. I don't know. I mean, whatever.
Just viscerally.
Yeah. But I think that what helps me, at least, what helps me not just feel like I'm watching people get tortured and get Inside, I got to a limit where I was like, I'm kind of okay. I don't need any more of this girl getting, cut up or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that with this. I mean, I felt it, but not in the same way. And I think part of that is because if you don't relate to the character's sort of psychology, and you're just watching them get the shit kicked out of them, you just kind of give up at a certain point. You go, enough. All right. I don't need it anymore. But they use the character trait of guilt to pull us in. And I think that I'm sort of speculating here, but I think that we as humans are able to connect to understanding somebody feeling guilt over, in this case, leaving somebody behind and having that kind of be the driving force than we are with just being like, she got tortured and that's horrible, so I'm going to feel for her.
Yeah.
Because I think it's kind of the difference between empathy and sympathy. We can empathize really well with guilt. We all feel it. All of us, no matter what. We live in a world where we feel that.
You could also call it remorse, regret.
Sure. But right, exactly. But it's much harder to get on board with understanding going through torture. That's unless you've experienced it.
More of an objective lens, just to your average.
There's a
filmgoer,
separation of, this is a person getting tortured, and I feel for that. I sympathize with that, but I can't really know what that experience was like. But I can very much know what the experience of remorse and guilt and being tortured by that is. And I think that's what gets us keyed into these characters on a more human level and gets us out of just feeling like it's gratuitous torture.
And to then talk about really feeling for them to get it out of the way, how about just then that when it is so effective, the specific cringe horror moments of like,
Seriously.
I don't know, it's something that I always like felt but I don't think I'd seen in a movie before quite, of those long cuts.
Oh my God,
that she's
yeah.
getting
Brutal.
from, that she's doing herself and reaching the back, but we're seeing it as her, regret monster.
Right.
Ghoul, which is just like a great horror movie, crazed, naked, slashed, bloody woman.
Oh my God. Honestly, I think this movie probably is the reason we have what is the one, I guess kind of like the style and the look of things like The Grudge and Insidious, and I think they are doing.
Grudge came way before, but
well, I mean the modern, the American versions of these. That they've really honed in on this sort of imagery and this style of that like ghoulish.
I mean, Insidious and stuff, yeah.
Shit.
If you're talking about Grudge 2020,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. I think that this it felt to me, I was like, oh, this is where they got that. This is the good version of it. They're doing a rehash of this.
So to get those, the long, I don't know.
Oh my God.
It's more, cut seems too tame of a word. What do you call it? Just like a...
Oh my God. I don't even know.
Slow, so it's not a slash.
No, it's not a slash.
But anyway, to get that on her back multiple times, like you just feel it.
Yeah.
And then similarly when she's doing it to her arms, her forearms, just like vertically along the way, like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt those the most, but then just as far as like particular moments too, when God, we didn't even mention the woman who's been caged up her whole life and has
we gotta that's further down the road for me.
Well, how about we get to it?
Well, I mean, before we do, there's a couple of things earlier in the movie I want to that I think were really great. The family itself that Lucy comes after is genius. Mm-hmm. Like that construct, super, super affluent. This like playfulness. Remember the opening moment of the family is a horror moment where the girl is being chased and she's screaming. The daughter is being chased and she's screaming, and it's shot like a horror film. It's very POV, like handheld, shaky. It's chasing her, and then the guy who's chasing her gets to her and tackles her and like starts to wrestle away. I guess I don't know what he's trying to grab.
It's setting them up like
it's a note.
It's setting them up like protagonists. Yeah,
exactly. And it's fucking great. It's such a good misdirect. Like it's not anything that hasn't been done or is so groundbreaking, but it works so well.
Once we get to the eventual twist after they're killing, they are really the bad people, these parents, these adults, it's just so satisfying when it's like something that when we're setting up people who are like, they're relatable, they're normal, look at their family life,
they're affluent and they're all kind of blonde, and
to have those people like making their coffee in their carafe be the utmost like horrible,
like the worst
torture
people ever.
Yeah, exactly.
That
it's so great.
It is great because I think that's the tipping point of the commentary on affluence and the influence of rich people and the psychology of, that socioeconomic realm of like, we can kind of do whatever the fuck we want because we're rich and white. Well, and this is our world and we get to, like, everybody else can fuck off. And if we deem the pursuit of this idea worthy, we can do anything. Like, we could torture people in pursuit of God.
Right. Okay. So now,
and that whole thing.
So we got to get into that now, since you brought it up. And so sort of you brought that up in relation to the parents that are killed at the beginning. These ex-torturers of our hero. One of our heroes, but then they are actually a part of this bigger society being led by the Mademoiselle, all as you said it, rich fucks, quote unquote.
That's right.
I think is what you said. So So yeah, there's always, I don't know, I just think of like when I hear like Beatles biographies or whatever, the idea when you hear people getting to reaching success in the way that sort of, modern society, past society deems it, of being rich and successful, and like then you have it all, quote unquote. But then like the Beatles you hear, or like Ram Dass, it's a kind of a spiritual speaker leader I like. They talk about, well, I've got it all. What this game is supposed to tell me is, winning it, but there's like, I'm still not feeling it. What is it here? So then at that point, that's when people try to, start thinking in terms of what is actually this all about? How do you reach enlightenment? What not? So to conflate that very human, I think, feeling, endeavor, idea, instinct with something so like a means so horrible in order to reach it, it like rings true in a sense. It's on that same level too as the rich of like, oh, I'm someone who goes to a restaurant that serves tiger because they were like endangered, like right. or like what Hostel's about, in the end, rich people, getting off on killing other people. It's the same thing, but just it's such a cool specific bent of like to have it so specifically tied to the idea of to see the afterlife, to get a glimmer into the afterlife.
Well, and
this is a worthwhile strategy means to get there.
Yeah, I think there's it's kind of, at least one aspect is the commentary on, I guess the religious fanaticism, and how historically that people have done awful stuff in the name of their religious fanaticism.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that all religion is bad, whatever. You got to see
The Devils. That's the one I brought up last time.
Oh,
you haven't seen the Ken Russell movie.
Oh, yeah.
It's showing all that at its worst.
So it's a
or
many...
like Hexen we watched.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a many-layered thing, for sure, but the commentary is quite clear,
Right. I don't know if it's a metaphor for it, but that exactly...
Well,
like,
I have a theory.
Oh, I mean, what I was going to say was some.
Go on. Well, you say what you were going to say.
Okay, what I was going to say, I don't know if this is a metaphor, but the idea that very obsession that we see with whatever it is in the context of the extreme violent religious, using that to justify violence, which is the same as what this rich old, society, it's not it, whatever they are.
Yeah. Secret
society, that very obsession that's leading to violence is like ironically bringing them furthest as far as possible from that very idea of enlightenment or better, like bettering oneself, whatever it is. Like it's so it's like the people that are furthest from the very thing that they're looking for.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
That's exactly the thing, that for people to watch this movie and not walk away being like, holy shit, that's what we're talking about. And this is the lens that they've, that we're looking at that thing through, this movie, is, I'm like, how the fuck did it get shit on so much? But then I'm like, well, because a lot of those people who are pissed off about it are the ones who see the world that way.
Right.
Right. And they're, on some level, they're probably deeply offended by this commentary.
But I think why it's so horrifying is because it's sort of the extreme end of something very relatable. Yeah. And as I always say, there's paradox in horror. Whereas far as...
I think you're very right in that idea, because it is a human thing to ponder at minimum.
Well, and to seek more as whether, like, I don't know, I'd say like, I'm pro animal rights person. So when I hear of like hunting nowadays and people describe it as, oh, there's the feeling it gives you, nothing like it, like the present, it's in our nature kind of thing. That idea of like, but then where it's even more relatable is like, does it extend all the way to eating like candy or something that or drinking soda, just something is just only bad for you but gives you like a rush of good happy feelings. That's that thing of doing something that is not good for you, but then is it good for you? And that's
right.
That's
How do you
that
measure it? Yeah.
right. And that's where I think the sort of horror really lies in this, because that's just a sort of unanswerable quandary.
Yeah.
You know, like I've arrived at for myself personally, all right, weekends are kind of my food cheat times. I eat unhealthy, and then I take care of myself aside from that. And I'm
That's
just
great.
now I just accept that. I try not to overthink it beyond that, you know. But then it's hard when it's like pursuing, these are just everything. They stay on a bad sleep schedule because just this time I want to stay out and do something. Like it's just all these kinds of things we ponder of where we just know on some level they aren't good for us, yet we do them because we're trying to get to that very good thing.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I have in terms of sort of personal philosophy, the stuff that this secret society is seeking is poignant, I guess, in relation to how my personal philosophy, which is very much rejecting the notion of living for something when you die. I don't know, and I can't know for myself what happens when you die. And so for me, the way to be okay with that, or mortality or whatever, is to focus specifically on how you live, like moment to moment. Right? And this movie is essentially rejecting my personal philosophy.
Well, I mean, that's,
you know what I mean?
That's what all these philosophies add up always. The end message is all that's ever really is you have the moment kind of thing. Yeah. So what it comes down to is the human experience. So you got to wonder then that brings up the question, okay, what if these people did get their answer? Do then they move on to finding a fulfilling life? No. She kills herself because she can't handle the answer.
Exactly. That's what's so fucking brilliant about it. Because of course you would be like, well, that's not, the expectation can never be met.
Well, that's what I kept thinking too during it, is the irony of like,
this is the most ironic movie I've ever seen.
Right. The torturers being the ones who are like the furthest from whatever, as we've said. But then, I don't know, just being the farthest from seeing that. I don't know.
Yeah. I get it. It's a hard movie to get through. There's a lot of tough stuff.
Right. And that's probably why it's not a buy it, but a rent it for us. But
it is.
Yeah.
But it is a brilliant...
Or a rent it, not a buy it.
It is a brilliant construction of these elements and like execution of that stuff. It really is. Okay, so those are... We've gotten some broad... Let's get into some specifics.
All right. Well, I can say like what was kind of, holding me back at first. Before
I think we're kind of resisting talking about the most horrible shit.
No, I wasn't.
I am a little bit.
But I guess sort of what then, when I perked up for this film, what was really working is for films like this, and I'm going to try to save Calvert comparisons to things of note and what didn't work or whatever. But in any horror movie where it is almost like a super, like, quote unquote, like realistic kind of style, or, there's nothing paranormal about it. Like I want an element. This is actually something John August said when talking about Toy Story 3, just popped up into my head. It's like, you need to put like weird in it. Like, in order to make something just sort of, maybe it's, as I put it earlier, like travel that new terrain, or for me, just like be interesting, you gotta like up the weird factor. So in the first kind of third chunk of the movie, where it is just kind of the violent fracas, it was all good and it was all cool, but maybe I didn't perk up so much. The ghoul woman was great and just fun in a horror movie sense. But even that, I think, like, was just still seemed like so part of it. So what really just scratched that, like, it's got to be like weird itch for me that was so important is when it finally got to this secret society.
Yeah.
And we had the Mademoiselle enter, and just all these people are entering the room. Like,
you were really tickled by Mademoiselle.
oh, I loved her. It's so good. Like that's when the movie sort of,
Yeah.
I don't know. You gotta, like we already talked to the story sense, how just sort of getting things out of the way up front allows interesting things to be unearthed. But you also just have to be willing to go, okay, well, what's a little just sort of completely like you wouldn't imagine up front with just hearing, revenge story. And
Yeah.
by going there, and because I think the director had, there's nose was in a good place uncovering this film, like that whole society, Mademoiselle was just on point and kind of made the thing for me.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, I think that we almost have we do sort of have two movies, right? Like they're obviously connected, but movie one is revenge. Movie two is the underbelly of this other world.
Again, though, like the revenge happens so soon, I don't even consider it movie one.
Well,
I guess maybe it extended afterwards.
It is extended because the mom isn't quite dead, which I thought was cool.
Right.
That's great. It has this, the arc of the first half is Lucy trying to come to terms with her ghoul, right? That's essentially what it is. And the basic plot points are, I have to kill this family in order for my ghoul to go away, and there are complications, and then when I think I've done it, I realize I haven't done it because the mom is still alive. So now my task is to finalize it, kill her, take a hammer to her head until it's mush, and then I should be fine, and I'm still not. And then because of that, she kills herself. That's the first movie.
The hammer to her head, Tim.
Dude. Yeah, talk about visceral.
Yeah.
The first 8 hits, we didn't really even know what she was hitting her with, and then you see that it's this mallet, and you're like, oh my god, fuck. But anyway, so that kind of is the first movie. Yeah, that's why I was saying, I was like, man, this is brisk. I was like, fuck, is this like an 80-minute movie? I thought we had been in it for that long. But we were probably only 45, maybe 50 minutes in, something like that.
Yeah, the whole movie's 99 minutes.
Yeah, so we're probably right around there.
No, you mean right around the halfway point.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
And the second movie is so, like you're saying, it is a different world.
Well, what's cool, and I think it works as far as, sorry, but keep that thought, but I think why what works is that it's not so much of just a hard left turn, because it is just revealing new things about everything that just happened. It's still tied to that first part.
I had a thought, and I don't know this particularly well, but I remember hearing that typical European movie structure has a much longer first act. Mm-hmm. And that would make sense in this context, that this is following that structure, that Lucy's story is essentially the first act, and then the second act is the upside down sort of world. Yeah, which makes sense for this movie, at least, because we get a literal underground world. Yeah, right. So so in that different structural context, it makes sense to me that's how they did it that way. But I would have to know more.
And so then that middle section, what we get is, before we get Mademoiselle and her crew showing up, we get the discovery of the forced blind woman. What is her? God. What's her? She actually has a name.
Gabrielle? No.
Yeah, as the mother. No, father.
That's the mother. Shit.
Whatever.
So yeah, damn. What is the name of that?
The woman
poor
who
woman
has been tortured her whole life, as presumably. I think they have pictures up in the hallway of babies.
Sarah.
Sarah.
Yes. Sarah is her name.
So it's basically just someone who I think they've had since birth that they've just been kept.
Is that
in
what
there.
it was? I was like, what? Like, man, she's wrecked. And how the fuck is she still alive?
That's just like, it reminded me of, you know, how she is in the movie The Woman. That's just about like a feral woman, you know.
I don't know it.
Oh, you should see it.
I was like, what the fuck?
But just the idea of a person, a woman specifically, who's not exposed to anything in our world and is brought up that way. But why did they put the visor?
That's explained. Did you didn't catch that?
Oh, the visor?
Yeah, the visor was put on because, okay, so Mademoiselle at one point explains the characteristics of these people that the posters of them are on the wall, right?
Yeah.
And she explains that people with afflictions tend to be better subjects, and that Sarah's affliction was that she hallucinated and would see cockroaches all over the place. And so putting the mask on her was to prevent her from being able to see that. Mm-hmm. I mean,
but she still felt them, it seemed like. That's why she was cutting up her arm.
Maybe, yeah. Or maybe she had cut up her arms because those were not like fresh cuts necessarily.
When we see her cutting up her arm.
Oh, yeah, but that's because the thing has been taken off.
Oh, she's seen them again. You're right. You're right.
Yeah. And then why she's rubbing her face on the wall is to try and not see anymore. She's trying to like...
Or to get those cockroaches off.
Or, yeah, maybe that's what it is. That sequence is, to me, the hardest sequence to watch.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
There's something to just... Because for me, it gets to me not just in the sense of seeing a person go through this, but seeing someone whose whole life has been deprived from them.
That's right.
There's something even more just disturbing about and hopeless. It's not about, oh, I'm hoping to root for this person to win to get back to how things were. It's just, this is completely beyond.
My first instinct when we see her for real, like she's still chained up and Anna is approaching her sort of trepidatiously, I was like, how would you deal with this? Mm-hmm. And I was like, man, she just needs a hug. You know what I mean? Like if she's been down there isolated.
And she tried to do that, just giving her basic human connection, giving her a bath.
Yeah, she holds her hand. Yeah, that, I was like, what the fuck else can you do? Like, now, taking the mask off, I'm not a doctor. Seems like a bad idea.
I get it, though, because imagine you... Okay, because she can't speak or whatever, but imagine you have that on you. I think I would just be concerned more about just getting it off. Like, I don't care.
I
guess not knowing...
I don't think so. For me, I would be like...
They're staples, not screws.
She doesn't know that! I was like, you don't know how these are anchored in there.
Yeah,
like, fuck.
I love when she's like, you just wait here now. Immediately, she just goes off and starts beating herself up or whatever. Can't take it.
Also, oh no, never mind. That's a thing that did not work, I guess.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, that sequence was hard.
Other specifics,
but, I think necessary.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
Necessary because it sets up what's about to happen.
And what is about to happen, which I think the centerpiece of the movie, that's just the part for me is, of course, how much I love Mademoiselle, but her whole just monologue she gives.
Oh my God, I know.
It's so tricky sometimes, especially for this movie that's like relying on having a certain sense of gravitas and realism to then have a sort of extended, this is us explaining everything work. Yeah. But it sort of shows that you have to, in explaining everything, actually not explain other things.
I was very confused I think partially too, having read the subtitles of that monologue, it was fast.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, I'm trying to keep up.
But it's great because it's delivered in such a way where like this is just her psychosis coming out of her, but psychosis in the sense of this is my worldview.
Exactly.
This is what we're doing. We are right.
That's horror. That's horror for me. Right
Yeah.
there. Yeah. The unmovable dogma. Mm-hmm.
I think my what was most representative of that is what that just in those bad dudes' performance, or maybe this is the one that specifically got to me the most, is how they're being fed the gruel, the goop. It's just this, that same very just kind of like clinical force and just feeding spoon food.
Yeah, like you can't eat that fast, right? So they're doing it in such an inhumane way, right? Like they're not even giving her a chance to swallow.
Yeah,
it's just another spoon. Now I'm gonna throw I guess this is my third. I sort of said there were only two, but my third big broad.
Wait, real quick.
Thing.
How that was shot though, without showing their faces, was
awesome.
a really nice touch. So it is just this clinical body doing it. Anyway, go ahead.
So at this point in the movie, we're getting the two things. We're getting Anna just getting beat up, like in the most fucking, I don't even know, volatile, just getting punched by a big, bald dude. And that whole sequence intercut with this force-feeding thing. While that sequence was going on, I was like, this is a metaphor for society. This is society. This experience she's going through. And so I'd like to try and pick that apart a little bit, what I mean. I suddenly had this feeling of like correlating what she's experiencing, just the onslaught of being beat up and being force-fed. I was like, this is, I think, what a lot of people who are not well off feel like on a sort of metaphorical level. And
the people who are well off feel it too, because it's inescapable. It doesn't matter. Sure. I mean, it does, of course, matters the specifics, but a society that's built on the idea of
you're right.
You have to you have to work, struggle, survive in order to survive, versus the sort of more, I don't know, the easy example is the Native American way of thinking. We take care of our tribe. Mm-hmm. We don't believe in poverty. We don't believe in people not being fed. Right. That's what I said. The rich in that by being the world. That's why billionaires aren't billionaires because they're bad people. It's because they're the victims in that same sense. Yeah. Oh, we live in a world where we have to cling to our money, where I don't trust these lesser people
haves and
with my money.
Kind of idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it became, I don't know, who knows the intention, but it felt to me, that's what my takeaway in that sequence was. That whole torture sequence, I was like, God, it just feels like the world.
Well, that's why in the feeding again, in that whole sequence, it's just this is how the way things are. Yes. We're doing it. This is how things are.
Yeah. The ignoring the fact that she can't even swallow it and she has to spit it out, and then getting slapped for spitting it out. All of that just, I was like, oh my God.
Right.
It's the world.
It's spinning
the fucking
out
world.
Where it's like, I don't want it though. I don't want this world. I don't want to do.
Doesn't matter.
I don't want to do this thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's the way it is.
And that's what you get for trying to fight against it. And so then when she becomes kind of, she's almost
early stage martyrdom?
No, well, yeah, I guess so, but she's kind of come to some sort of peace internally through this. I was like, yeah, that's what we all need to fucking find that too. Like, we need to be able to like whatever, find our peace and balance and like meditate or whatever to build an armor almost around us from this shit. that we're
Yeah,
experiencing
because
in the world.
you're right, because that doesn't mean accepting all this. What it means is
no.
What it means is putting, what's the metaphor? Giving yourself the air first or whatever. You have to be in a good, as good a place as possible to not just deal with this stuff in a sort of in a physiological, like putting up with it, like keep marching forward way, but just in an intellectual level that comes from a level-headedness. Yeah,
and I think that there's, maybe you call it kind of, I mean, it's funny because the goal, like Mademoiselle's goal, or what she thinks is her goal, is to get her to get Anna to be in this place, but it's Mademoiselle's definition of that place, and I think Anna ends up being able to do it sort of on her terms in a weird way, like she does her version of it. And I think that when we get to the actual flaying and everything, which is horrifying, the thing that Anna says to Mademoiselle, my interpretation, maybe this is just for me, is it's a fuck you. It's a fucking middle finger, that she has come to her own peace enough to, in this moment, play along up to giving Mademoiselle what she wants, which is this, fucking whatever she sees on the other side thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that what she's actually saying to her is a big fuck you.
Right. It's a fuck you on a whole different level, as far as, well, I think it comes from that place of, I don't know if it's conscious, but recognizing that, again, that they're the ones who are really trapped. Right. Which is, it's just a paradoxical thing to try to wrap your head around when she's the one who's literally physically being trapped. Mm-hmm. But just the fact that they are trapped even with their physical freedom is where she gets her power from. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And what I love so much is, that you're so, like, when you're trapped in the sense that the captors are, you're so just little and weak and that's why Mademoiselle killed herself. Whatever she did have to say to her was just too much for that kind of small-mindedness way of looking at life.
Right. Because, you are expecting to have this revelation, and,
the revelation she should have is that she probably was going through was that she should have never been doing any of this.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Of that level.
Maybe she shouldn't have. Mm-hmm. Imagine that.
Yeah.
You fuck.
Which I gotta say, a specific detail I loved around all that was how when Anna is giving her the answer to the beyond, whatever she wanted to finally hear, was that it wasn't just like a single whispered word.
No.
It was, she went on sort of in that more...
Don't they say that she spoke for like... They say how long she speaks for.
It's a bit.
It's like an hour or something like that. And Mademoiselle heard every word.
Right. That's what's so... I just loved that detail about it.
Yeah. And so you can... I think that's what's nice about this. The two things... You do have this transitional thing of, going into the light and the cool effect that they have.
I was going to say, I did really like that. Way better than the CG baby in Inside.
How far we've come.
Right. But just as far as kind of a sort of potentially risky stylistic effect in this kind of, intense context. No, it worked for me because
it was great.
Because you needed to just be down in that horrible, like viscerally, like, or just visually horrible place.
Yeah.
I think it was important to show sort of a seeing something within and beyond that, just a light in the pure sense, just a sort of tunnel of pretty white accepting light.
And I think because it is not overtly defined, it's nice to have that kind of left up to your interpretation, right? Like, I'm obviously saying my interpretation is that was, Anna's basically saying, you're a piece of shit and there isn't anything, and so good luck. This is all for nothing. or whatever she's saying. Like, I just like it being, we don't get to hear what that is.
Yeah.
It's really pleasing to
It
me.
wouldn't work to hear it all. Absolutely.
No way.
Nothing
'Cause
could
there's
get
no
at
answer.
it. Because how do you get at like what would cause herself just to...
Can you imagine if this movie, like the goal of this movie was to be like, here's what we think.
Yeah. Be horrible.
Yeah, it'd be awful. So good job, guys. You didn't do that.
Yeah. I guess the last little moment I had that was just, I thought, interesting to pick apart was towards the beginning when they're kids, and she, when Anna's offering to Lucy, like after she's going through one of her spurts of hearing the woman try to break in or whatever, she's like, do you want to, then they're just like 10 or 12 or whatever. She's like, do you want to get in bed with me?
Right.
As like a comfort thing. And Anna or Lucy rejects her invitation. Right. And I don't know, that was just the kind of thing I thought interesting to pick apart as far as that line between your ability to, like, the importance of having thick skin and being able to be okay by yourself, but at the same time,
pun intended.
Yeah, but at the same time, knowing that connection and comfort are important things for humans too. Yeah. And so that clearly, I think we could read it as in she would have been better off, accepting that she's okay just to get that comfort and to get in bed with her. And it just sort of was an interesting... You're victim blaming, Ryan. That's what I'm saying is so interesting. Like, what is the right... Was she... Because we see that when she got... By her not going in bed and being like, you know what, I'm tough. That's what led her to take the route of revenge. Yeah, I mean, just... Yeah, in the most broad sense, it's like... when you deny care and love, you just put it that way, like it makes it more difficult to sort of move forward. And the nuanced part, I think, is that people are different. You have people who are more prone to one or the other. Yeah. And it's always doing whatever is the one that doesn't come more naturally to you. That is usually more your saving grace. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's another moment later in the movie when Anna tries to kiss Lucy. Oh, yeah. And it's sort of a like, seems weird and out of place, but I think it's the same thing. It's not like, here we're going to have some lesbians. It's not about that, I don't think. I think it's more of a like, she's well, it's her only way. Like, she's being given no ability to give Lucy love, and she's trying all these different methods. Yeah, and she tries that one, and it doesn't work. And she tries, to hold her, it doesn't work. She tries all these. She's always things. Just gonna be like, "I'm here if and when you need me," and she tries to make attempts. Yeah, that's what makes Lucy very tragic. Yeah, is that like it's? But it seems like not going to let it in. All that she needed, which Anna wasn't able to give to her, was being believed. I know, which is such an interesting thing because, to your point, how we define love and care is not. There's a spectrum to that. Yeah, like it could be just believing somebody, and that's comfort for her, or it could be physical touch, or it could be, whatever. There's like a whole spectrum of things that it could be. And I think we often get misled into thinking it's only physical. Right. Well, it was the conflict within, her believing her as far as seeing the creature woman. You see Anna's, she's it seemed like, oh, maybe she is doing the right thing as far as saying, oh, I believe you, like just kind of, but almost lying in the sense of saying, oh, talking with her is sort of like, it's not the thing that she needed as far as sort of saying, okay, I'm just going to go check for myself if she's in there, though. Yeah. It's not that I don't believe you. When instead the thing she should probably be saying is, you know what? Like, I'm sorry, but this is a crazy thing. You have to understand that. I'm open to believing you, but I'm also just gonna not disbelieve you. There's that nuanced approach that like because
how about asking her why she's seeing this person?
Yeah.
Where does it come from?
Right.
Like actually getting to the root of the existence of that specter.
Right.
You start to go to the root of it, and then that's why therapy exists, right? It's like
that you could
right. You know what I mean? It's like you're not just getting a pat on the back.
You could see though then that connected to what we already brought up though, that the deeper point of mistrust was and conflating that seeing the specter with whether what exactly this trauma was from the get-go, if she really was captured or not, kind of thing, you know.
Right.
So in the end it seemed like she wasn't. I mean, when she apologized, that's why she apologized. She never believed in the thing that she really needed her to believe, which is what did happen. Forget the specter.
True. Very true. Yeah, get to the root of it.
Right.
Well,
okay.
Woo!
I think we covered it for the most part there. Nothing else?
I guess the only other thing is visually it's just really, really well shot.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting shots. There's some set design that's really good. Mm-hmm. The downstairs set design, like it's just a den. the fucking dungeon. The set design on that is really beautiful. It's very contrasty and, like... It's good. It's cool.
It was nice. Just kind of in the moment we were just talking about with the ghoul creature woman, is imaginary? What is she? Having that very clear moment where finally we do see, we see what Lucy's seeing, the ghoul is there scratching her, and then we see what the rest of the world, what the actual situation is of Anna, of Lucy cutting herself.
Yes.
So it was nice.
Yeah,
it was very, I think, satisfying and helpful, and just worked to literally cut back and forth the imaginary and the not. Mm-hmm. Don't leave that up for question.
And we didn't really go down this path, but there's a whole other commentary to be had on just mental illness, I guess, for lack of a better term, even though, just people who are suffering from schizophrenia or whatever the condition may be. Like, I think there's a lot to be said about that.
The monster as metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah. And we touched on it, but listening to them and actually being present and not dismissing them as just crazy or whatever.
Yeah. We just want to be heard.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Well, let's see if anyone wants to hear us talk about what did not work for us. All right, next section. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
I mean, honestly, I don't really have much.
I don't have much either.
Taking the fucking screwdriver to those staples in the head was upsetting to me.
You were just like, why would you do that?
I'm like, you can't do that. You can't.
The only other...
Don't take it off. You're not a doctor. You don't even have gauze.
No, you're right.
Get some gauze. Get some fucking what is it? Bacitracin or something.
I told you,
Oh, she did, remember?
Oh, right.
That's right, she put...
the rubbing alcohol.
That rubbing alcohol. What the fuck are you doing? Don't do that.
I already told you why this was an issue for me, was I can get... granted, I would have been wrong. You would have been the right one, but I was able to relate to the, if you're empathizing so hard with someone, you think all they care about is just getting this thing off of me I've had on for me for decades.
I understand the urge.
Yeah.
But
No, I can hear you. Yeah, you're right.
The infection side of me says, please don't do that. Let a professional do it.
You're right. This is so slight, but only got from... reading the summaries and stuff, that it starts in 1971 and then when it jumps forward, it's in 1986.
Wait, they fucked the timeline up?
No, that's just the fact.
Oh, no, that's right.
The fact that it all was a period piece from 71 to 86. And I just didn't...
What was the point of that?
In the things of note, I could say what the director was at least intending, but just the fact that if you're going to do that, it didn't seem that way. Nothing about that house felt 80s.
Just
Like maybe
sure.
like the landline phone I kept getting hung up on, but it was like 2008.
Oh, right.
It wasn't actually that uncommon. They didn't look old or 80s to me. The
just
phones,
looks like
because I
European.
think they were expensive was the thing.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know. It was just kind of funny. Like if you're gonna set it in the 80s, set it in the 80s, I guess. Like I don't know.
Yeah, what a weird distinction to make.
It was just kind of an odd like thing after the fact. Realize that that's what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I guess it didn't affect my viewing,
it didn't
but
really
as far as
affect me.
it being there and not working, that did not work.
I just think Europe feels like it's another. It's like has weird. It's another time anyway.
They're just always in the 80s.
Because there's like a castle, and then there's some weird thing from the 80s, and then there's some modern thing.
Yeah.
It's like they're all I don't know. I just don't even think about it.
Right.
So did you feel as though? See, I'm on the fence of this. Like I could put it into what did not work. I felt a little bit like the beating up and force feeding was like a few minutes too long. Like we went a little into just like, okay, we get it. Or do you think it needed to be that long?
I don't know, because I wasn't like, ooh, I want to see more of this.
Certainly not.
But at the same time, I wasn't feeling like, as a film, like, oh, it should be cut down. Because otherwise, at a certain point, like, because you could have done the ending, let's say, as where it's just literal, like montage flashes of this little different sense of torture. Mm-hmm. And then it would have been the 70-minute movie or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Just I think for the overall mood, what it was, the fact that it was a fade to blacks and fade up from blacks and dissolves versus a hard cuts using to jump time. Mm-hmm. I don't know, that the pace, from pacing point of view, it felt appropriate.
Okay. Yeah, I'm still on the fence as how I felt. I think you could have shaved about 2 minutes off of it, and I don't know.
I think you gotta cross the line in order to then see how she reaches that next point.
Yeah,
like it's gotta become repetitive to then be with her when we're saying this has happened past the point of being novel.
Yeah, you're right.
The only things I had was I mean, what I already said was the only kind of mild what did not work for me, the 80s. But so anything else I have is more on the level of like, why not for me, I guess, or why, if I said this movie was not a buy it for me, more just under that versus it not actually working.
Yeah.
And so this first one is kind of a weird worked and didn't work one, but like the style that was put in at the beginning where the monster woman visage first appears and it's like this obvious jump scare, noise and stinger, which if you listen to the Grudge episode, I hate more than anything.
I remember thinking, uh-oh.
Right. Right.
Uh-oh.
So it is done, that was the only time something like that happened.
Yep.
But it's just this weird thing where it was like, I don't know. It's kind of like what I was saying about what's the other revenge movie we watched? The other main one. The House on the Last House on the Left remake. Yeah. Where I'm just like, you don't need to do any of this like filmic flourishes.
I agree.
And in fact, it's, better for it.
I had forgotten about that, but I felt exactly the same. I was like, this moment would be just as fucking good, if not better, without that.
But then I wonder if just having that there, it makes it so once we do get to the weirdness of the Mademoiselle and Co. that I do like so much, it allows that little bit of like filmic flourish separation allows us to sort of buy into something more kind of specific and weird that happens later, rather than as if we were just so in like, this is real, this is only like you're watching a home movie or whatever.
Interesting.
I don't know. On some interesting level, it like may have worked on that level, but at the same time, just not my favorite style.
Fucking God, they only did it that one time.
Right, exactly.
It's like you get one.
Yeah, exactly. And then also, like, even though I thought it was great and perfect for the movie, the beginning and the end chunks were just, I didn't love, like, the first middle chunk once where it's, what I loved about this movie was the weird stuff with when she discovers the underground thing with the woman.
Yeah.
And then the Mademoiselle and all of them showing up. But, you know, like kind of what we already said, but as the purpose of it, the first chunk and the last chunk. And again, this is just from a maybe not for me sense. It was just like, okay, you know, kind of like what you're saying, could it be cut down at a certain point? I am just like, I get it. Cool.
Wait, I'm confused. Which part are you saying this applies to?
I'm saying because of how much I loved the middle chunk was just more my style of getting the Mademoiselle and the interestingness of discovering the woman and the downstairs.
Yeah. You're saying the previous chunk?
Just the whole first beginning chunk of the fracas and then the last chunk of the torture.
Okay.
I think, you know, that it's like, I think it was great and it worked for the movie and is a great film, but just whatever is the bulk of those just sort of content wise versus idea wise is just like not my thing enough to make it a buy it.
All right. I really like that bit.
Again, I do like it. This is not what didn't, I said, this is why it is not a buy it for me, not why it didn't work.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Because that's, I mean, we got to talk about something in the section, I guess.
Do we?
Well, no, I mean, this is an interesting level. I mean, way to... okay, because I feel like if we don't, then it's just kind of like, well, then why isn't it just to buy it? You guys clearly love it so much, you know? That's why I just thought it was interesting just to parse a little bit.
I don't know. I'm starting to feel like maybe I am a buy it.
I think it's a good enough film to be a buy it, but our rating system is...
It's just hard to watch.
But that's not our rating system,
But it's not
you know?
that... I mean... I didn't think it was that
It's
bad.
not the worst of the worst, like when you know, it's always worse in your head, though.
Yeah. Well,
but I can see why, though, absolutely. It's gotten the kind of notoriety, being super extreme, but one aspect in particular we'll get to in things of note. But here again, why it's just, okay, here's a way to put it. Why I put this as just extremely high rent, or maybe a buy it someday if it has been years since I've watched it, I might as well buy it. Maybe it is that kind of a buy it. But as far as like Calvaire, which I'm like, dude, this is one of my new favorites. This is a buy it. Just to compare it to that one. So yeah, as the ideas that were there for me in this one were super interesting, it still came down to their reactions were just, freaking out. This is a movie of people freaking out. And that is just inherently less interesting me than what Calvaire was about, were people's insanity, how insanity being messed up, how that can manifest as normalizing things.
Right. Interesting, yeah. I get you.
And that just like, so in Calvaire, it's, seeing someone turning someone into a woman in their heads. And or what was it, thinking like, what was it? They thought a goat was a dog or something like that.
Oh God, yeah. What?
They're raping pig. No, maybe it's another pig.
Yeah.
They're raping pigs. They're like dancing to discordant music.
Yeah.
But just all those ideas of seeing crazy, or being again like hurt. Actually, how we put it earlier, being disconnected from connection, from love, seeing it manifest in these kind of very like
what the fuck
ways that strikes me as more in a just a feeling it way, even if it can kind of be off-putting people because it's weirder and they go, what is this is inexplicable. That inexplicableness for me, like I relate to inexplicableness as being more realistic or being more like actual life, because all these things we're talking about, it's not like, just like we couldn't hear her saying it, there's no answer. So anything that sort of feels like I can't immediately go like, oh yeah, that's because of this. Oh yeah, that's because of her guilt for leaving that person away.
Right.
You
have to be shown all of it.
Right. These sort of the questions that come up and not being able to like immediately understand why they're dancing like they are in Calvaire. Like you get it. It feels right. But as far as hitting me in a sort of deeper way, it doesn't as much.
Deeper. Sorry, that's from a totally different thing.
But
I'm referencing a thing in my head that you don't know the context to. It's from another podcast that's from another story.
All right. Anyway, it's my 2 cents on why
I totally get that.
Yeah.
A lot of it kind of comes down to, I think, flavor.
Yeah.
Right? Like Calvaire is a flavor. It has a very specific sort of thing going on. And, you know, there was, oh, damn it. I remember having a thought, and now I don't think I can recapture it, but there's sort of a, you know, like Memento is a revenge thing. Mm-hmm. Memento has a flavor, right? Like, it's still revenge. It's a revenge movie, but like I think the ones Kill Bill has a flavor. Like they're
all different ingredients.
Yes, and like how we do revenge, you know, on that whatever, if you want to put it on like I guess a spectrum, those land somewhere. This lands in its own place, and we are individually prone to likes certain sections of that spectrum.
Right. And
I think this one, as and as it is, and the things that are going on in it are obviously, we have a lot to talk about. And I'm, you know, I find all of that fascinating. It's still not necessarily my flavor of film.
Right. And I think, and if you sort of, a big ingredient to that flavor is the torture aspect and like real world setting. Like, I think, you know, if that's how you separate this from Calvaire, like, they're both French extremity movies, but I still think that Martyrs is like the best that I can imagine the story being. Granted, there's still a lot we haven't seen.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm with you. I may have only seen 4.
There's a whole Wikipedia that's just the French extremity. Like, just go to that.
Yeah. I can off the top of my head think of 4. So, you know.
Yeah. And so, again, you ask me, okay, you rather watch this movie where people are being tortured or there's pig rape and people thinking someone else is a woman when they're not? You know, give me the latter.
Wow. Well, now we know. This is a nice little window into Ryan's brain.
The inexplicable.
Yep.
More interested in.
Cool, dude.
All right. Should we go to our last section?
Yeah, let's do it.
Things of note.
Things of note!
This should be interesting.
I kind of tried to dig in a little bit on this because I was under the impression from all the stuff I had ever heard about this movie that it was banned in a bunch of places, but then I couldn't find that.
I found out about some of that.
Oh, good. All I know is that it was like the stuff I found was more on how the French like Ministry of Culture was pissed off and they were like wanted to give it different, like
that's what it was.
ratings.
So they wanted
like
to, the French, whoever, they initially gave it an 18 plus rating, which is sort of the equivalent of like an NC-17 X rating here is kind of like the death profit wise of a film of how many places it's going to get screened in, how many theaters it's going to get booked in. Mm-hmm. So there was a kind of a protest, a movement about it, where it's like, get it down to 16 plus. It was the rating below, I guess the R equivalent. And the filmmaker said that, they did the appeal, like sent something back to him, and then just sort of without any warning, he got like an email or a letter back or whatever that was like, okay, it's been reassessed and approved for 16 plus. Like, and then it was kind of like, whoa, okay, great. But I forget how long that turnaround was, maybe a matter of months or so. But that's what it was, a ratings controversy that I picked up on, not so much a banning controversy.
Yeah, maybe.
But their whole argument why it went as far as protest was saying, even though it's just a ratings thing, is because it's only going to get like 4 prints made versus go, France wide, is it became an issue of censorship for them, not just ratings.
Yeah.
That's what they're protesting, and that's, we can equate with banning.
Maybe that's what I had always been hearing, is that it had been censored. That censorship was the root of the controversy over it, and I sort of equated that to it being banned.
And it's also easy to equate the censorship with the idea of it being cut down or not.
Sure.
But no, it was just in the sense of, by giving it this rating, less people are going to see it.
Now, we watched the unrated version, I believe.
I didn't know there were 2.
Oh.
Because there's, on the Wikipedia, there's only a single running time for it, 99 minutes. credits, usually it says the different running times.
Maybe I misinterpreted that too. Who knows? Maybe I was drunk. I don't know. I don't even know what day it is, Ryan.
Well, I can tell you some things for sure about it.
Okay, great.
That were interesting talking with the filmmaker. There was an interview with him on What's Up Man with 2Ns.com to talk about the whole 1985 thing. Why would you say it?
Is the host's name like Jerry Mann?
I'm guessing, yeah, exactly. Yes, why is the film set in 1985?
Oh,
Again,
right.
And I think these are all like any interview stuff I read with him. It's, translated from French, so it's a little funny. But it was done to create distance between our time and the time in the film. I liked the idea that everything had happened in the past. The only testimony of the film would be the Super 8 footage at the beginning. Also, to be honest, I shot the film in Montreal, and for me, it was a good way to make Canada look more like France.
Fair enough.
Yeah. And then more interview stuff that I thought was interesting as far as this kind of specific stuff to the filmmaking approach of this film. From an interview from reviewgraveyard.com. They said, you tried a new way of directing for this movie where you attempted to capture reality, and so sometimes you wouldn't tell the camera operators what was going to happen. Was that hard for the crew to adjust to? Said, yes, of course, especially for an American crew. For co-production reasons, we shot the film in Montreal and Quebec. And the American system on the set is not very used to that more European method. They like shot lists and everything, and I refused to do that because, once again, I really wanted to bring as much reality to it as I possibly could, because my first film was so over-controlled. Everything was storyboarded, and directing the film for me was like trying to recreate a storyboard on set. I was constantly the enemy of reality. In Martyrs, it was the opposite. I tried to let the reality interconnect as much as possible with the shooting process. Then did that make the film harder to edit? Yes, it took us at least 6 months to finally start to see the final shape of the film because the dailies were kind of strange. I shot very long shots trying not to cut the camera as much as possible because anytime I turned off the camera, I took the risk that my actors couldn't find the right state again because we were dealing with so many tears and extreme emotions from the actors. It was a tough process.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
That sounds fucking awful.
What?
The idea...
from the idea of the production?
Yes. And the idea, and from the actor's point of view.
No, I mean, I looked at it as that's how you do it with the actors. And I don't know if you've had to do...
Brutal.
I've had one, my one main like straight-faced horror movie I've done was similar, just kind of the straight up, final girl being, in a horrible situations. But it's like, no, you gotta go... to cut more often kind of throws you off. You want to, when you go there, it's like, it's at least what I picked up on is it seems like it's harder. It's more of a roller coaster to sort of have to be there and then make it go away and then make it come back again. Like, and we know just from any kind of filmmaking, like the longer takes you do, the more you're just kind of getting, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like, so you aren't have to repeat it as much.
Yeah, that's true. I like the fact that some dickhead thought it was a good idea to remake this.
Oh, right. Well, it's just Americans like studio or whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so this is the worst thing I've ever heard. Ready for this sentence in Wikipedia? Blah, blah, blah. This guy and that writer and whoever wanted to do it with the producers of Twilight.
Yeah.
And the producer said he would like Kristen Stewart from Twilight to be the lead in this movie. And everything about that, just after watching this,
I'm sure
like,
they would have given it a happy ending too.
Oh, they say that. They literally say that.
I believe you. It's okay.
Yeah, it's in there somewhere where he basically is like, yeah, but we would, we wouldn't make it so. Come on, guys. Who wants to see that movie?
I know. The one other thing I know for this kind of intensity movie, it kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah.
Like,
go make something else.
Well, that shows
you have so much money. Just go make something else. That's good.
Right. That's exactly what these kind of
Find
remakes
a new story
come down
that's
to.
Good.
Is how they're just looking off sort of name and notoriety. Oh, Martyrs. I think I've heard of that. That's supposed to be some
there was controversy.
Oh, yeah. So I'm going to go see it.
It's annoying.
It's like, making Quarantine from Rec. Like, I say all that.
Yeah. God, that's how I was introduced to Rec. I saw Quarantine.
We talked about that in our Rec 2 episode.
God damn it.
One last thing I got from the reviewgraveyard.com interview I really liked was I think it was from that one. The director, he was signed on, and it sounded like he was going to do a Hellraiser reboot.
Whoa.
And he was talking about it as, oh, it's my next thing, blah, blah, blah. This is my approach to it. Sounds really cool. Sounds like he was going to do it right. And then I'm like, okay, well, this clearly never happened. This was over 10 years ago. But then, I'm like, my question there was answered why it didn't happen. He says, if I have the feeling that I'm being asked by Hollywood to soften the franchise, I will leave in a blink.
Whoop. Blink.
He did.
Wow. Cool.
Okay, 2 more things of note I had. We brought up the ratings controversy, but actually, kind of foregoing why this might be controversial. It's kind of obvious. And in our what worked and what didn't work, we kind of glossed over. I think that's something that's just really, I don't know, I clearly wanted to bring up and talk about, but as far as in films, I think I personally don't want to say crossing line, but I feel like it does bring a movie to another level when you go as far as killing a kid, like even in a horror film.
Like in the opening?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Like that's just something that in a film I can see. I more see it as when that is introduced in a film is when something will always, instantly get that label of like, unrated NC-17 18 plus in this case. Like I don't even think it has to do with the violence, but when you're putting that, for me, like if that hadn't had happened, this movie would have been on a way different like level inherently. To kill a kid in a movie, I think
in like the first 10 minutes
in a horror movie especially, it's not like Schindler's List or whatever, or some historical Titanic kills kids, it's not like that. But in a horror film, to do that, it's sort of you're
ruffling some feathers.
Yeah, you aren't crossing the line. I don't. Maybe that's just because I don't believe in that, but you are certainly crossing a line. Yeah. And I just think it's something worth noting that they did it, and it puts this movie at a certain something.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess I can understand that, but I disagree.
What do you mean?
I disagree. I mean, I personally am not affected by that in the same way.
Right. Have kids one day, though, Tim. You might feel differently.
Maybe. Find me a woman who wants to have my kid.
I think it's this. I don't know. When we talked about Last House on the Left, rape being kind of the worst thing like that to put on screen. I don't know. I put kid killing right up.
Yeah, it's
almost right up there.
Pretty high.
And again, this is the horror movies I like. I appreciate they do go there. But I don't know. As far as, I don't know, I guess I just found that noteworthy as far as like seeing how this, is not I don't know, just takes it to a different place.
Yeah. By
going that far. I'm not saying I'm personally like you. I'm not saying that means I'm personally affected by it in a certain way. It's just, I think, something to acknowledge. The last thing I had, Tim, was a direct question for you. You haven't seen the movie The Woman.
Apparently not. No,
but
I haven't. I know I have not.
I got it. So the thing that was most horrified, one of the things that was horrifying going through my head when we have Sarah, the woman, being trapped underneath, and I took it as a situation as she's been there her whole life. It's not that her tongue was cut out. It's the reason she's not speaking is because she doesn't know a language. She doesn't know words. Oh! And the horror that was getting at me, I want to ask you, Tim, is what would you be thinking in your head if you didn't know words?
I mean, I have no idea how to translate that. If you have seen stuff, no, I don't know if she's ever seen anything. Well, I guess we do know she has at some point.
We have sense memories of being a baby before we knew language. That maybe is a sort of approach to that question.
She can hear stuff.
Yeah.
But has she been exposed to people talking?
But it's all meaningless. I'm just saying.
Would it be?
Also, I'm just saying. Presume she doesn't know words. Maybe you're arguing that we don't know for sure. But I'm just
no.
the question.
What I'm wondering is in the premise of your question, has she heard people talking throughout her life?
Probably. I don't know.
So wouldn't you learn the language?
That's why I'm
Like
saying
babies learn the language. They don't need to talk to learn the language.
I'm
right?
saying I'm presuming from the situation of her literally not saying help, help, or anything
In
like
French.
that. Yeah.
Right.
No, I'm just saying under the presumption that let's say no one spoke in front of her.
Okay. Yeah.
She.
Okay. But she's seen stuff. Has she seen? God.
I'd like to think they waited a few years to put that thing on her, so it's not.
I don't know. I don't know what that would be. It seems like a cool thing. Maybe it's just like your brain is sort of taking feelings and translating that into some sort of, I don't know.
Are you only feeling feelings?
No, I think you're having thoughts, but it's a totally different construct. Like what is a thought without language? But like we have thoughts all the time that are just image based.
Well, our thoughts
and also emotion based.
But our thoughts, you imagine them kind of like starting somewhere and then bubbling up and then they turn into words.
No, not for me necessarily. I have lots of thoughts that are just images, and they have a correlated.
No, but I'm saying
emotion.
But I'm saying if we didn't know a language, that is what they would be, as sort of a thought before words get attached to them, a feeling like an essence of thought. When we think something, they aren't words instantly necessarily. Like they are coming from a place.
Sure.
And to be and it's what's beyond that is what I guess I'm wondering what that's like in my question. Can you imagine?
I think that my version of imagining that is based on sort of your emotional response and some sort of brain construct of either imagery or something else. I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's more like it's all like, yeah, we can. But even when I'm thinking right now, I'm not like picturing things unless I'm sort of like, okay, I got to picture this, So for me, I think it is all like just feelings without words to attach to them. And it's just so hard to think of what
the words are fucking made up anyway.
Right. But since our head is just so full of word thoughts, it's really hard to...
I think your head is full of word thoughts.
It is.
I think my head is full of picture thoughts.
Great.
Because also there's things like the rhythm of things or like the vibration of things that we feel around us all the time.
Right, so feelings.
And so I think that shit that would be your language, right? You'd be tuned into that more than we are because we're tuned into this other thing.
So, but it's like in the context of this film,
being
like the thing that she's thinking if it was words, basic words is, I don't like how this feels. I don't like this.
Yeah, but she doesn't. If she doesn't have words,
Yeah.
Here's how that's like how that goes. That's what her language.
Exactly. So that's what I'm just trying to think of. Like, Tim, imagine being below that.
Babies cry and shit. They smile and cry and whatever. They don't need words.
So I guess another way is I can put the question is, do you remember how that was and what it was like?
Every day. I wake up and I cry like a baby.
With no words attached.
No words.
No thought. No thought words.
I am a being of pure impulse.
When you especially in that first second and a half in the morning, with no word thoughts attached to them.
It's just stuff's just coming out of me.
Right.
It's not words, it's sounds.
And that's what makes me think it's
gases.
Just pure emotion is just every part of us. And I wonder if that kind of like that modern day, I don't want to call it an ailment, but like our thoughts are like separate from the rest of us in a certain way, in a not helpful way, getting caught up in the bad thoughts. If what it's like to not have the word thoughts is this sort of more your feelings like in your body are there's just a more interconnectedness between head and body.
Hell yeah.
I wonder.
I think you can. I think, yeah, there are ways to connect to that.
Yeah.
Lots of ways to connect to that.
Clearly, I thought that was in things of note. An interesting question I had during the film. I wanted to hear what you said. All right, should we move on from this film? No More Martyrs, 2008.
Yeah. I'm just, I guess not, because I'm going to say one more thing. I think I have seen 6 of this New French Extremity.
I think I've just seen 4 because we've watched Martyrs, Calvaire, and then the 2 only before were High Tension and...
Calvaire's not even on this list.
Well, no, look at the Wikipedia. You look at
also...
You also look at on Letterboxd, there's a lot of good lists.
So, whatever.
All right, should we move on?
Yeah.
All right, next is recommendations.
Oh, do you have one?
Yeah.
So do I.
What's your recommendation?
It's the new HBO show called The Outsider.
What is it?
It's essentially a detective story, which, as you know, I love. I love a good detective story. Kid murder, and then the suspect. And like all the evidence is like fingerprints, eyewitnesses, all this stuff points to the town like baseball coach, little league baseball coach. And so he gets picked up for it in, weird circumstances. The cops are like, holy shit. They all know him. It's a small town. And then the story starts to unfold that like, despite the evidence, he was in a different town when the murder occurred. That entire day, for sure. He can't have been in 2 places at once. And so it starts to unravel that they find other cases of people who have killed kids who the same circumstances. They and witnesses saw them in another place, but the evidence puts them in the murder scene.
So what do you like about it?
There's a supernatural element in it
Oh.
that starts to creep in, and it's very like, what the fuck? Or where are we going with this? But with that, I don't want to give anything away, but it's pretty good. It's directed by Jason Bateman, who also directed all of Ozark, which I loved. And the look is amazing. The lead is Ben Mendelsohn, who I love. Fantastic actor. Everybody's great in it. The story is weird and windy, like a good detective story for me. So yeah, it's great. It's on HBO. There's only 4 episodes so far, but
what I wanted to recommend, Ed, to you and our listeners is, which I already recommended to you, Tim. You gotta see it while it's in theaters. H.P. Lovecraft's Color Out of Space, directed by Richard Stanley.
Maybe I'll do that tonight.
Yes.
I don't really have anything.
It's
tonight.
great. I thought it was great. I'm no expert.
Stanley.
I'm no expert on H.P. Lovecraft. I'm kind of like getting into it more and more.
Me neither.
But I think as far as what I do know, it's like a great, adaptation as far as sort of in the larger context of being a Lovecraft adaptation, when like sort of tracking down, like as much as I love these Stuart Gordon ones, there's still an element that's not quite, that's not make it fully Lovecraftian,
sure,
in a certain sense.
Not like the video game.
Yeah, Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem. It's my recommendation before. But I heard it just got, it's getting expanded. It was doing well enough, and it's limited release. So hopefully it's opening up. And
where did you watch it?
It was at sort of like when we saw The Dead Don't Die at that theater with the advanced screening.
Oh, yes.
It was, I think, the AMC, the Burbank, like 17 or 14. There's a bunch of them there.
Yeah, the one that's the same theater I saw Batman vs Superman, and it was. I think I told this story already on the podcast.
It was
when I walked out of the movie, very disappointed. I saw people going in very excited, and I was like, oh, these poor guys.
But it was similar, where it was just kind of a 2 days before it actually came out.
Oh, cool.
Advanced release.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't want to say much more about it. It was fun. Richard Stanley, I mean, honestly, sort of on top of this recommendation is I've just been binging like Richard Stanley interviews and podcasts and everything. It's just been fascinating hearing what he's been up to the last 20 years since his Island of Dr. Monroe movie that he got off of after 3 days.
That documentary is so good.
Yeah, recommended
Watch
that later
that.
maybe.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it was worth checking out. And it's just like seeing the trailers of the horror movies before it that were just like, I don't know, what's the one with...
The Turning?
Yeah, just stuff like...
It's getting panned.
Just is that the one with the kid from Finn Wolfhard?
Yeah.
Yeah, just movies like that where I'm just like, whatever, people, I don't care. This is what I want, something different, something interesting. It was cool.
Cool.
Maybe we could talk about it in a future episode, because sometimes our recommendations are ones where it's like, it'd be actually fun to pick this apart. So let us know.
Cool.
So now next week's film.
Oh my God,
Next
it's my
week's
turn. It's my turn.
Film, Tim.
Yes.
Tim, you may want to refresh it because Wrong Turn 2 is in there. And the longer we go without pulling it, the more likely we are to pull it. Just a warning.
If I pull Wrong Turn 2, I would be really upset. Ooh, another South Korean film.
Which one?
It's called Bedeviled.
Cool.
I don't know anything about
Well,
it.
I'm excited about just because it's South Korean.
Hell yeah.
All right, great.
Cool. Yeah, maybe I will. Let me look right here.
I've been adding some more to the list too. So.
I have too, actually. I added a couple.
Good.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 left exactly. I think I said we had 9 left last time, but that was a guess. This is an actual count. So we have 9 left. So I will print out the new list. I think that's apropos.
Time to refresh it unless
Yeah.
we want Wrong Turn 2 sooner rather than later.
Oh my God.
Is it-
I'm going to refresh it. We're going to put 30 more films in there, and the first one we pull is Wrong Turn 2.
Yeah, when we did our Wrong Turn episode, we said, how about, Tim, this is the one series where we slowly get through every one. So as soon as we pull Wrong Turn 1, we just put it back in as write a 2 next to it, and we're just going to keep doing it. Come on, Tim. Hillbillies. Yeah, exactly. The continuing adventures.
Oh man, what was that guy's name? He had a
Something
hilarious
Tooth?
Something Tooth.
I
yeah,
forget.
fuck, whatever. All right, dude.
All right. Until then, until Bedeviled next week, you can find us at dismemberinghorror.com.
It's true. You could find us on Instagram and Twitter, and you can email us at Gmail. Pretty much, dismembering horror. Except for Twitter, which is just HorrorPod. And then you can go to our web.
I beg your pardon?
I know. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Horrorpod
Is our Twitter, you said?
That's our Twitter.
Oh, okay. And our big ask, if you've made it this far, is to tell a friend about our show if you enjoy it. If you enjoy it, that's how you spread the good word.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Well, in closing, we mean it. Thank you for listening.
Yep. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.